Have you ever wondered how schooling, as we know it today, came into existence? Our journey begins in the distant past, in the prehistoric times. Back then, there were no classrooms, no textbooks, no exams. Instead, education was informal, passed down from elders to the younger generation. They learned the art of survival, hunting, gathering, making tools, and deciphering the mysteries of nature. As we move forward in time, we see the first glimmers of formal education in ancient civilizations like Egypt and Mesopotamia. Here, a select few were given the privilege of learning. Scribes, who were the record keepers of the kingdom, and priests, the spiritual guides, were the educators of this era. They taught the elite few, the pharaoh's court in Egypt, the royal families in Mesopotamia. From these humble beginnings, where knowledge was a cherished and guarded treasure, the foundation for modern education was laid. And so, our story of schooling begins. But it was the ancient Greeks who truly revolutionized education. The Greeks, or more specifically, their philosophers, laid the groundwork for Western philosophy, and in many ways, our modern education system. Thinkers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle were not just philosophers. They were educators who deeply valued the pursuit of knowledge. In the sunlit courtyards of Athens, Socrates engaged his students in thought-provoking dialogue, encouraging them to question everything. His method of inquiry, known as the Socratic method, is still used in classrooms today to foster critical thinking. Plato, a student of Socrates, established the Academy, one of the earliest known organized schools in Western civilization. Here, he stressed the importance of a well-rounded education, one that nurtures not just the intellect, but also the physical and moral character of an individual. Finally, Aristotle, who studied under Plato, further refined these teachings, emphasizing the importance of empirical evidence and observation in learning. This holistic approach to education still resonates with us today. As we moved into the Middle Ages, the face of education changed dramatically. The torch of knowledge, once held high by the Greeks and Romans, was passed to a new custodian, the Church. This period, often portrayed as a time of darkness and stagnation, was ironically the cradle of a unique educational system. Monasteries, the silent fortresses of knowledge, became the principal educational institutions. Monks, with their scholarly robes and ink-stained fingers, dedicated themselves to the preservation of knowledge. The curriculum was largely religious, with Latin, the language of the Church, being the primary medium of instruction. But it wasn't all theology and scripture. The 7 liberal arts, grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, formed the foundation of a monk's education. But as the Middle Ages gave way to the Renaissance, a profound shift occurred. The world was reawakening to the allure of humanism and science, and education was not left untouched. The air was ripe with curiosity and the thirst for knowledge, and the seeds of change were sown. The first universities in Europe emerged during this time, marking a significant departure from monastic education. Bologna, Paris, Oxford, these names became synonymous with higher learning. The curriculum expanded to include law, medicine, and physical sciences, reflecting the Renaissance's emphasis on human potential and achievement. The university wasn't just a place for learning, it was a hub of intellectual exchange. Scholars from different corners of the world congregated, their diverse perspectives fostering a vibrant academic community. This marked a crucial turning point, the democratization of knowledge. Education, no longer confined within monastery walls, began to reach the broader public. The printing press, another gift of the Renaissance, made books more accessible, further fueling the spread of knowledge. The Renaissance was indeed a rebirth of ideas, curiosity, and above all, education. The seeds planted during this period would grow into the educational landscape we know today. Education, once reserved for the elite, was becoming more accessible, and as we'll see in the next scene, this trend of accessibility and inclusivity in education only continued to grow in the modern era. The modern era brought with it the concept of universal education. As we moved into the 19th century, a wave of change swept over the world of schooling. This era marked the introduction of compulsory education laws, beginning in Prussia, and soon spreading across the globe. These laws mandated that children of certain ages must attend school, a move that aimed to eradicate illiteracy and ensure every child had access to basic education. The catalyst for this seismic shift was the Industrial Revolution. As the world moved from agrarian societies to industrial ones, the need for educated workers skyrocketed. Factories needed skilled hands, and offices required literate and numerate employees. Education was no longer a luxury for the privileged, it was a necessity for all. Schools became the training grounds for the workers of tomorrow, equipping them with the skills and knowledge they'd need to navigate the rapidly changing world. The 20th century brought with it further changes to the educational landscape. Progressive education emerged, championing the idea of active, experiential learning over passive rote memorization. The focus shifted from the teacher to the student with an emphasis on fostering critical thinking, creativity, and personal growth. This was a departure from traditional methods that viewed students as empty vessels to be filled with knowledge. Instead, students were now seen as individuals with unique potentials that schools should help to unlock. Throughout the 20th century, further reforms were introduced. The barriers of race, gender, and socioeconomic status that once restricted access to education were gradually dismantled. Education began to be seen not only as a tool for personal advancement, but also as a means to promote social equality and justice. Today, education is seen as a fundamental right, shaping the minds of future generations. From the compulsory education laws of the 19th century to the progressive educational reforms of the 20th, each step has been a stride toward a world where every child has the opportunity to learn, grow, and fulfill their potential. So how has the journey from prehistoric elders to modern classrooms shaped our world? The answer lies in our exploration of the history of schooling. We've seen how education has evolved from the wisdom imparted by our ancestors around the fire, to the philosophical debates of the Greeks, through the monastic schools of the Middle Ages, and the humanist ideals of the Renaissance. In more recent times, the advent of compulsory education in the modern era has transformed schooling from a privilege of the elite to a universal right. We've witnessed the rise of educational theories, the inclusion of diverse subjects, and the integration of technology, all contributing to a dynamic and ever-changing educational landscape. Today we face ongoing challenges such as equal access to quality education, adapting to digital disruptions, and fostering lifelong learning. But these challenges also present opportunities for growth and innovation. As we continue to evolve, so too will our approach to education. After all, the only constant in life is change.